Welcome and hello. This is a video lesson in MODSIM. And in this lesson, we're going to be talking about viewing the results, specifically exporting data. Exporting our results data to be viewed in either an SQLite file, an MS Access file, or an MS Excel file. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got my model up on the screen here. It's basically, I've got two non-storage nodes contributing inflow, 1 and 2, and then downstream of that, it's two consumptive demand nodes, demand 1, demand 2, and my sink. Associated with both inflows and demands are the time series, and there is plenty of flow. So it's a very simple model, but what we want to do is look at how to export results. What I have on the screen here is the project directory. So currently the only thing we have is the main.xy file called lesson8.xy. We're going to be adding some files to this over the course of this lesson. So I just wanted to kind of introduce it right now. The first file that we're going to add to this is the SQLite file. So one way to export data is either through a Microsoft Access database or to a SQLite database. And then if you export it to Access, you can then export it to Excel. But we're going to start with the SQLite option. And to do that, go up to MODSIM menu and then come down to Output Control. And then our two options are right here, version 8 output format, either SQLite or the MDB Access. Now, by default, SQLite is selected. So we're just going to go ahead with that first. Some of the other information about this output control dialog box we'll touch on a little bit later in the lesson. Okay, so I'm going to click apply and OK. That's good to go. Now I'm going to run my model, and I want to bring the project directory into view at the same time. So let me just move that over. Okay, and then click on MODSIM and run MODSIM. Okay, do I want to save my changes before running the model? Yes, that's good. Okay, so it's running. And you saw over here, we have our .sqlite file. Now, if you don't have SQLite Studio, I believe it's a free software to view .sqlite files, go ahead and download that. I'll leave a link in the description of this video to help you find where you can download that. But anyway, just go ahead and open up your SQLite file. And I know this is a MODSIM lesson, but I am going to be doing a little bit of work in the database here just to demonstrate how the MODSIM results can be exported into a more user-friendly, usable form. Over here in this left panel, you may have to expand to see the list of tables, and you can expand that. Here are the tables. There's currently 12 tables in this file. And a few that I want to just kind of point out is the links info. If you double click that and then click on the data tab, you see that we have 4 records in this links info table, and that's associated with the 4 links in our network, 1, 2, 3, and 4. In fact, they're labeled, the name is labeled right here in the first field, inflow1 underscore inflow2. That's this link right here. Inflow2 to demand1. That's this link right here. It also shows the from node ID, the to node ID, and then this L number. I believe this is what's used for the ID or the primary key in this table. And that matches up with the foreign key in the links output table right here. So I'm going to go ahead and double click that. This is the structure you're seeing. And then I click on the data tab. This is the 4 times 24, 96 records representing the 4 different links times the 24 different time periods in this simulation. This is a 2-year simulation on a 1-month time step. So if I scroll down all the way to the bottom, there are the 96 records. This L number here is that foreign key, which matches up with, here we go, here's the previous table, the links info table we're on now. That L number 1, 2, 3, 4 for links 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the same thing as 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's the different links. The second column here for TS index, this refers to the time series index. So this is the very first month of the 2-year simulation. 1 right here represents the second month of the 2-year simulation. So January 1980, February 1980, March, April 1980, and so on. And then we see the data after that, like the flow rate. This table right here, links output. If I go ahead and double click that and then click on the data tab, now this L number right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, that represents the links 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is serving as the foreign key in this table that connects to the primary key right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, for the L number value. Okay. So that's how that works. Now, if we wanted to write a query to perhaps get all of the flows through this first link right here, then that would basically mimic the same thing as the inflow data, the inflow time series. We'd go to our table right here. We want to get only the rows in this table that have an L number 1. So this is going to be for the first month, the second month, the third month. If it isn't 1, then we don't want to see it in our query results. So I'm going to go up to Tools, Open SQL Editor, and then I'm just going to paste in a query that I have prepared, and then click on the Run tab right here, or the Execute button. All right, and then down below here, let's see, I can close this. Down below here are the query results. So what we're seeing is the L number 1, and then I'm also ordering it by this TS index, which is the time series index. So it's chronologically moving forward from time step 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this would be January, February, March, all the way to December of the final year. Here's the flow rate. Here's the losses. Looking at the diagram, I can also write a query to, for instance, take a snapshot in time at a specific time step. We'll say, how about April of the first year? So that would be TS index of 3, I believe. Yeah, so it'd be this right here. But instead of seeing all the time steps for just one link, I want to look at all the links, but just for one time step. So here's an example of what that would look like. I'm just selecting the L number, the flow, and the loss. So not every column, but just these 3, L number, flow, and loss. And then that's from this table just for the month of April 1980. And then again, order it by the L number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's go ahead and execute that. Boom. Here we see the flow rate through each of those pipes. So we know that the inflow for that month is, for inflow 1 is 23. And then we add inflow 2. So this link is 63. The difference there would be 40 acre foot per month. And then the demand here at demand 1, we could just subtract again. That's going to be 6 acre feet that month. And then 10 is the difference between 47 and 57. So that's the demand out of demand 2. Now, if we want to export those results, there's a few options available to us in the SQLite Studio. This is the button I want to click, which is export. Okay, so it basically pre-populated the query for me. That's good. I'll click on next. Now we have a few export options. We want to export either as a CSV file, HTML, JSON, PDF, SQL, or an XML file. So yeah, I usually don't see all of those listed together. Let's just go with the CSV file. And I've actually already did this in preparation, so it has my exact path I want to export it to. But what you're going to want to do is navigate to the file. So for me, it's going to be on the desktop. I'm just going to call it April 1980 flows.csv and save. Okay. Column names in the first row, that's optional. So I'm going to say yes to that. Remember, this is a CSV file, and then I'll click finish. So that file arrived on my desktop. Just out of curiosity, let's go ahead and see what how about the JSON looks like. So change the export format to JSON. I guess for the file path, we'll just go with a .json and finish. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up those two files. And here they are. So here is the CSV file. Across the top, we have the headings. Then we have the link number. We have the flow and the loss, just what we asked for. And then here is the JSON file. It's just a different format of exporting basically the same data. Looks like a little bit more data here, where at first we're defining the columns, and then down below here, we actually have the data. Okay. There were a few other export options, but we're not going to investigate all of them. You can do that as you wish. Just like the links, there's also information about the nodes stored in this database. So we have a links info table. We already saw that. There's also a nodes info table. And if I click on data, we see our 4 nodes or 5 nodes that we already sketched in to the physical network in the IDE. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Inflow 1, inflow 2, demand 1, demand 2, and sync. And then down below that, we have a number of artificial nodes. And these are nodes that MODSIM adds just to help it perform its calculations, but can also be helpful for the modeler to sometimes look at. They are associated with inflow, storage, demand, reservoir spill, mass balance, groundwater, and group. Now, I don't have any groundwater. I don't have any reservoirs, and there's probably nothing really too interesting in these particular nodes, for me at least, not for this very simple model, which, like I said, doesn't have groundwater and doesn't have a reservoir. But just know that this N number index serves as the index, the primary key for the node. So if you go ahead and rename a node, it's going to rename it here. It's not going to have to rename it in a bunch of different tables and rows and everything. That's just how databases work. Okay, so just keep in mind this n number is now going to be the reference for NNO field, which is the foreign key in the following three tables. Up at the top, we have dem output. So this NNO column right here, that represents the different nodes. There's also res store output. Okay, we don't have any data here, but here's the column NNO, and then res output. I don't think there's any data here either. Nope, but here's the same NNO field, which is used to associate with the specific node that's being referred to in the model. All right, well, that's all I had to talk about on SQLite. So let's go ahead and pivot and talk about exporting our results to Microsoft Access and then Microsoft Excel, sort of a similar conversation. So I'm going to close the SQLite Studio, return to MODSIM. Now, when we go to export, like I mentioned, we needed to export an access file because if we go to try to export to Excel without an Access database file in our project directory, we're going to run into an error message. We can go ahead and try it. It's going to go File, Export, Results to Excel. I believe this routine is going to be looking for an Access database, which doesn't exist. So let's just go ahead and call it results.xlsx or just XLS because this is kind of an old program. Click on Open. Okay, it's not found. Let me just go ahead and help it out here. So New, Microsoft Excel, Results. Okay. And then that should appear here. We back out, go back in. Okay, let's see, all files. Okay, there it is, results, open. And then, okay, now I select it, overwrite, yes. And it looks like the file still exists, but it's 7 kilobytes, so it's empty. That's the size of an empty Excel file. You can see here we got the error message, and there's just nothing here. Nobody home. Okay, so let's leave that here. It's just an empty results file. That's V9, and we will need it in just a little bit. Let's go to MODSIM and then click on Output Control. Now here is the selection we want to make, this radio button, MDB Access. So I'm going to click Apply, click OK. And now I need to run the model again. So let's go ahead and save the change, save, MODSIM menu, run MODSIM. Okay, yes, please run. And then, oops. So there's a bunch of CSV files that loaded up over here. These are temporary files used during the simulation. So it looks like we're done and those CSV files disappeared. But what we now have is this Microsoft Access.mdb file. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And just like SQLite, we have an external database program with our exported tables that we can view the data. Now we may need to write a query and massage it and export it to Excel or some other program if we don't want to do a whole lot of work in SQLite Studio or in Microsoft Access. But that's kind of up to you how you want to do your results viewing and post-processing. Here are the tables, and we can also view other forms, queries, a few other options. Tables is the only thing we really have right now. And this may look familiar to you, but we have our links info table right here. This is our 4 links. Let me order them 1, 2, 3, 4, and then those are the names. So those should look familiar. We also have the table for links output. This was the table that we wrote that query on, 2 queries, in fact. If we go up to the Create tab and then Query Design, that's this button right here. And then we change the view here to SQL view. Hello, there we go. I don't need this add table here. Okay, so here is my query box. And if I just want to paste in the same query that we used before, notice that we don't have the limit clause. That's not allowed in Access, I guess. And then if I'm ready to run this query, it's going to build a query, sort of a separate entity, kind of like a table, but it's in a group of queries. Click on this run button. It's the red exclamation point. And then boom, here are the same results for the same query that we ran earlier, but over in SQL Studio. So what I did was I queried on just the L number 1, just link 1 for all of the 24 time periods. And then here's the flow through that link 1. I could do the same thing with all the other queries, but I think you get the point. Where that query is saved is actually it's a temporary query. I still need to save it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. For the name of this query, I'll call it link 1 flows 1980 to 1981 and click OK. Okay. So it's saved over here. That's good. Now I can export that data in a number of different formats. To do that, you're going to go up to the External Data tab right here. And then there is an export group and then Excel. So here's export. And then let's see, Excel is grayed out. Oh, okay, I had to actually click on the query here. I thought it was just here. You have to click on the query over here. Excel is no longer grayed out. So go ahead and click on Excel and then navigate to where you want to save that Excel file. So I'm going to click on Browse and I'm just going to put this on my desktop. Boom. And then that'll be the file name, link 1 flows 1980 to 1991. Save. Okay. We've got a few different options on the style of Excel file format. I'll just go with the typical XLSX and OK. Okay, that looks good. I'll click close. Over here on my desktop, that file opened up. So let's see what we got. And boom, here is our results. A single worksheet in this workbook with the results from that query that we just wrote. So our data is all ready to go, ready for additional processing. All right, so that's all I had to say about Access. Now, if you wanted to just export everything directly to your Excel without going through SQLite or Access, that's also possible. Now, keep in mind, you need to have this .mdb database file created and also in your project directory. But now we should be able to go up to File, Export, Results to Excel. And when we do this, what it's going to do is export a number of the parameters that are set and checked in the checkboxes in this output control dialog box. So down below here, we have tabs for reservoir, demand, non-storage, link flow, groundwater account, and selective output. It looks like most everything is checked on by default. That means it was saved in the access data as well, I presume. So let's just go ahead and see what happens. So I'll click OK. And then again, File, Export. Let's actually click it this time, Results to Excel. I'm just going to use this results.xls file that I created earlier. If you use a .xlsx file, like a more modern file extension for Excel, then you may have a problem, but that's why I'm just going with .xls. It's actually asking me if I want to replace the existing file. Yes, I want to overwrite. And then let's see here. The Excel file is now here. It was just created. This is the last day of the fiscal year. So let's click on results and see what we got. All right, now down along the bottom, we have a ton of different worksheets. And this isn't just the Excel output data, it's also some input data. So flow link, link loss, link natural flow, link max, min, and so on. I'm not going to try to say them all, but I'm just going to quickly scroll through all the data. Okay, I think that was all. But anyway, that is your Excel data. So you can go ahead and figure out what you need from there if you're not going to do any pre-processing or filtering using queries in Microsoft Access or in SQLite Studio. So that's it for this lesson. What we talked about was exporting our results data from MODSIM to SQLite, as well as Access and Microsoft Excel.